Hey everybody, and welcome back to another reasonable price prediction series where we try to figure out where your favorite altcoins could be headed. Today we're back with Litecoin. If you like the content, please leave a subscribe or a like. Both help out greatly. With that said, let's get straight into Litecoin. We can see that this last week, Litecoin has had a really good week with an open just below $65 to the current price, which as of recording is a Sunday, so most likely it's not going to fluctuate too much. Current price of $75 will probably close the week around $75, which is give or take a 16% move. Really strong move from Litecoin. And note that we haven't seen a move this strong really in 1 week since March, when the rest of the crypto space was really blowing up and we were getting crazy weekly moves of 30%. Do remember this is Litecoin as well, a coin that is notorious for doing poorly, basically. Love me or hate me, that's what the coin has done. But another interesting thing to note is that this isn't actually unusual to see in the month of October. And it's actually more common to see a strong green week towards the middle/end of October. And we can basically go back to any October. And Litecoin is a bad example of this because Bitcoin, basically every October, has had a strong October towards the end of October. We've had a couple of green weeks always. But even Litecoin, if we go back to 2023, take a look at October, we can see that we end the month really strong with a few green candles. Go back to 2022, we can see that end of the month, we get a few really strong green candles. 2021, even though it was the Bullrun year, it was still pretty rough towards the end. October, all green, all green. 2020, again, week at the start, basically nothing for the first couple of weeks. Strong third week. 2019, I think this is actually an exception, or is it? No, it's not, never mind. We get a strong green week towards late October. Basically the same thing that we've had here. Now, these weren't moves as drastic. If we're measuring from open to close, it was 10% of a move here. If you want to measure the whole weekly volatility, you're getting like 37% move. This was 5 years ago as well, just to keep in mind. Going back to October 2018, this is the exception, I'm pretty sure, where it's just basically a bad month. Yep, we had one green week though, funnily enough, mid to end October, more or less slap bang in the middle. So do note that this week, more or less historically, has always been green, basically for Litecoin. And you can go back as far as you want. I'm going to save you the hassle and just tell you that more or less it all summarizes to a strong October, particularly towards the end of October. So this move isn't actually that unusual. Again, what's really important here as well is that we've broken above the bull market support band, and we look like we could be coming back up to test this trend line. And now you could ask, why the hell have I got a random trend line here from this local high that we had just before the halving? That comes to my next point, and that is that basically every halving, just before the halving, we get a local top, okay? Every halving, we had it here as well, we get a local top. Now, this trend line has been cloned. This trend line is the exact same as this trend line, and it's the exact same as this trend line. Every single halving so far, we've always come back to test and get rejected at this trend line. So in 2020, we had our rally before the halving, and we came back to this trend line and got rejected. And then soon afterwards, we moved above it. Back in 2016, the same thing. We got to the halving, we had our rally up just before the halving, our local peak, we drop back down below, we then come back to this high, this trend line. How long actually? How long was it? We'll say from this high to this high, about 30 days, give or take. Basically, it's the same time period because these trend lines are the exact same. They've literally been cloned and they fit really nicely, or the last two have very well. So if we bring that and copy it over here, we could potentially see Litecoin play out the same way, and that would match if we continue to get a strong October like we have in the past, which say if it takes us another 2 weeks to get there, we could see another 10% move over those next 2 weeks, bringing us to about $85. Now, if it is going to play out like it did before as well, most likely we'll see a rejection, but that could just be in time for us to, we reach here, beginning of November, we reach our high, we spend the month of November going down, maybe December 2nd, we've dropped 16% down, we're at $70 again. Maybe once we've dropped back down to those lows, we can see ourselves going into a bull run. Again, this is kind of what we've seen over the last few times. Once we hit the high, We take about a month to drop down, spend a couple of weeks at the lows, and then move into our bull run. Same thing here. If I zoom in, we can see from these highs, 4 weeks, kind of get down to these lows, spend an extra few weeks. This time in 2016, 2017 was much longer, spent a few weeks down here, and then we move into our bull run. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is that we're coming towards the end of the bear run and potentially at the start of a bull run, at least for Litecoin. But I think if Litecoin's going to have a bull run, at least Bitcoin's got to be in a bull run. You know what I mean? There isn't an isolated Litecoin bull run. So we could be seeing good price action across the crypto board in a couple of months. This is what I've been saying. I've always stuck to the 4-year cycle. I've always said, I think 2025 will be a strong year for the crypto space. I don't think it'll be like 2021, but I think we will obviously see really good gains. The final thing that I want to talk about on the US dollar charts are the kind of peaks that we get from cycle to cycle with Litecoin. So if we zoom out here, we can see that basically every cycle, Litecoin has had a major peak, which is brought on by a major bull run, and a minor peak, which is brought on by a minor bull run. So far, this has continued to play out. And over the 3 cycles that Litecoin has experienced to completion, we've had this major bull run and minor bull run peak. Now, if we measure after this minor bull run peak, how long it takes for Litecoin to break above its bull market support band durably, so properly break above in a way that suggests a bull run. We can see that back in 2016 or 2017, we got our peak mid-July. It took us 90 weeks to break above the bull market support band properly, bringing us into March of next year. So this took well over a year for us to break out of. In 2019, when we had the high, we had this high. I'll zoom out so that we can see the trend line. We had this high in June again, so mid-year basically of the pre-bull run year. So mid-year basically of the pre-halving year. This took us 71 weeks for us to break to the upside above the bull market support band in a durable way, where we didn't then come back down below it within the next few weeks or months. We had our proper bull run, Litecoin went to its all-time high. So we have 90 weeks and 71 weeks. If we bring these dates over to when we had our minor bull run high, which I'm counting as July 3rd of 2023, again, mid-year, like it's always been, and July was actually the same for 2016. It was the same month, basically, if you want to put weight behind that. Taking it 71 weeks out, like 2020, puts us at the end of the year. It puts us mid-November for when we break above the bull market support band durably. Now, for me, I'm actually not a fan of this, but there is a way that you can make it work. You can argue that this move here above the bull market support band is actually the start of our bull run. We're not going to see this kind of retracement from the trend line that we've always seen after the halving. We're just going to go straight up here. And that's a fair point. Again, none of these times actually have to play out exactly too. So the fact that we're like 67 weeks currently, if we started this trend upwards 4 weeks before what we had previously, I don't think anybody is going to mock you for that. I think that's a reasonable time variation. I also don't really agree though with the 90 week. I think that we're probably going to see our durable move to the upside begin well before the end of March of 2025. I think we're probably going to see something within the December-January timeframe. So for me, neither of these are actually spot on. I would actually take something in the middle, basically. And if you do take something in the middle, it basically puts you December-January time, which is personally where I think the bull market will have begun by. Do note though, in terms of similarities, we're similar to 2019 in the fact that we kind of had multiple lower highs. We had these kind of smaller bull runs quite regularly, not bull runs, but strong weeks, strong moves up after our minor bull run. So as we can see in 2019, we got this first wick up and then the second wick up. Here we got this first wick up. We could be coming back for our second wick up. Kind of similar with 2016, but it was more of a flat line, which is more of what we've seen here. Here has been more of a flat line. We've returned to the previous high instead of it being a lower high. So that's something to be aware of. And another thing that's quite similar is during this whole time, this should be blue so that it's easier to compare. But we've basically held a support Once we had this high before the halving, we've held the support. We've not gone down below it. We haven't had these huge price spikes. We've kind of kept bouncing continuously off this level. And I can actually bring this up, which is also very similar to what we've had recently, where even before the halving, we've had this support that we just haven't moved down below. We've had this support that we just haven't moved down below. So in terms of copying and pasting the movements that we saw 2024, 2023 is looking a lot more similar to 2015, 2016. But there is always a way to manipulate the data and look at the things you want to see to make it fit your criteria. So for me, I'm not relying on it playing out exactly the same way as either. I'm relying on something in the middle. And I think that's vague enough to be safe, because I don't know, we could see a huge crash. I have no way of knowing. Just interesting points, to be honest with you. And also the general trend of Litecoin is very, very, very slowly up. So potentially, if we do see our bull run play out in January, if we do move from a $70 type of mark, bringing us back up to this trend line would be a 500% move. That would be $440, $450 for Litecoin. If we're going to return to the all-time high, it's about a 480% move, bringing us to about $410, $412. So that's the potential price action we could be seeing, which, to be honest with you, I don't think is actually much better than Bitcoin, which we're going to get into now. So this is the Litecoin Bitcoin chart. Again, similar to the US dollar chart, it's the first time that Litecoin has had somewhat of a bullish week, or not bullish week, but bullish movements on this chart in a very long time. And that's because we've tagged the bull market support band. Now, this might not seem like a big deal, but in my opinion, it actually is. If we go back, if we zoom out, first of all, we can see that during this time, before and after the halving, Litecoin has always trended down. And this cycle is the same. We've trended down pretty drastically before the halving and continue to do so after the halving. Happens every single time. Zooming in back on what we've had over the last couple of years, we can see Litecoin has barely spent any time close to this bull market support band. We can see we've wicked it once here. You could make an argument for here, but not really. Technically an argument for here. And now, for the first time since July of 2023, we've actually got a weekly close that's in the bull market support band. So it's taken us 14 months to basically have a weekly close back in the bull market support band, with 2 moves testing it, but ultimately getting rejected. If we go back and take a look at what we've previously had, we can see that we often get about 1 or 2 moves of a test of the bull market support band before finally making our move to the upside where we get our bull run. Now, this was the 2021 bull run for Litecoin on the Bitcoin pair. It's pretty pitiful, but if we count how many times we broke above the bull market support band or tested the bull market support band, we can see we had this one, tested, broke above, broke down below, broke up above, broke down below. That's 2. Here, tested, broke above, broke back down below. And on number 4 was when we had our bull run, which I will remind you was a move of 100% against Bitcoin. It 2x'd Bitcoin's performance basically here. And that was in the best bull run crypto has ever seen in its life. Moving on, if we take a look at 2015, again, zooming back in, we can see we tagged the bull run, or sorry, we first moved down below the bull market support band. We come back above here, back down below, that's 1. We test it here, potentially, with a couple of wicks, ultimately rejected. You can count that as 2. You can count that as 3. Break above on the 4th. So again, bringing us back to current day, we've had our first wick, our second test, our third test, and potentially a 4th coming soon. Now, we might break above here. We might break above and come back down, like we've seen every other halving, post-halving before. Litecoin does actually come above, but oftentimes goes back below over the space of a month or 2. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. All that I know is that historically it's taken us 4 times to break above the bull market support band. This is currently our 3rd attempt. You could argue actually that since breaking down below here, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. So now this is number 4. This is where we're going to break out. That'll probably work better if you're trying to fit it to previous cycle data. It kind of depends which way you slice it, to be honest with you. You can count this as 2, 1 here, 2 here, maybe even 3 here. There's a lot of different ways you can read this. But ultimately, I think we are now at crunch time. And if we spend a month above the bull market support band and it doesn't look like we're going to dip back down below it, if we continue to slowly put higher green week, then I think that's a sign that Litecoin is in a bull run. Now, in terms of where we could go against Bitcoin, last cycle, 2021, we got a 100% move. We 2x'd against Bitcoin. If we're saying this is the breakout here, this move is going to be our break above the bull market support band, and we get a 2x, that brings you up to this upper range of about 0.0022 Satoshis. That could be our high. And again, that's assuming a 2x against Bitcoin, which I think is reasonable because on our US dollar chart, we said we could expect a 500% move from Litecoin. If you think Bitcoin's going to 2x or 3x from this point on, which I think is relatively reasonable, and you're expecting a 2x from Litecoin, that matches pretty well. If you're expecting us to reach these range highs, we're getting a 150% move. That's definitely stretching it, in my opinion, for Litecoin, but not impossible. Definitely something that's not impossible. All in all, though, I think it's important to remember the trend that Litecoin has been in ever since its launch against Bitcoin. And that's just been down, basically. It's had strong moves to the upside in the past, but overall, it's just been down. It's been lower highs, lower lows, all the way down. Potentially, this cycle as well, we could see Litecoin drop as far as 0.0005 Satoshis. That's not too far away from where we currently are, which is basically double that. Again, it could look similar to the 2017 bull run, where we dipped down below, had our rally, and then just traded down basically for 5 years before getting any other kind of a strong move. We might not dip into this range at the start. We can see back in 2014, we bounced off the top of it before moving to our highs. I think that's definitely possible. Either way, there's a potential for a bullish Litecoin in the near future. If Litecoin is a coin you're interested in, this is good news. And I'm going to leave it there. I think if you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. That's totally fine too. If you're holding Litecoin this cycle, comment it down below and let me know how long you've been holding Litecoin for. I'd be genuinely interested to know if new crypto people are putting money into Litecoin or if it's all old money in the crypto space. Anyway, thanks so much, guys. Take care and peace.